Let's look at the Agonalis Obelisk in the Piazza Navona in Rome. This is going to be our first obelisk that we're looking at that is not fully Egyptian made. This piece was commissioned by the Roman Emperor Domitian from 17 meters of red granite in Aswan, Egypt. So it's technically Egyptian, but not really. It was brought to Rome and then decorated with hieroglyphs, which makes me question their authenticity. It does also have a representation of the emperor between two different divinities at the very top on the pyramidion of the obelisk. Domitian is pictured wearing the double crown of Egypt, indicating that he is displaying himself as a pharaoh, which is odd because at this point the Romans had ruled Egypt for over 100 years and they weren't totally embracing the Egyptian robes. It was originally placed between the Temple of Serapis and the Temple of Isis in Rome sometime between 81 and 96 CE. The temple is located on the current site of the Chiesa di Santa Maria sopra Minerva. I was definitely wrong, and the hieroglyphs are apparently very accurate, showing that both the Egyptian language was still being used at this time, and apparently there was somebody in Rome who was able to write and carve these hieroglyphs. That's the part, honestly, I think I doubt a little bit more. They say, when you translate them, he, as in Domitian, hath received the kingdom of his father Vespasian in the place of his brother Titus the Great, after his soul flew up into heaven. This is essentially this emperor's succession story, and though the weirdest thing about this is that Domitian was considered a tyrant, and in 96 CE he was assassinated both physically, like he was killed, but also by records, by Damato Memoriae, which is essentially trying to cut him out of all Roman records. So this is one of the only records that we have that actually survives him and talks about him. The funniest part about this is that even though they were able to do it in Egyptian hieroglyphs, that statement is so un-Egyptian. That is not like how it would be. And so I'm really questioning like the grammar and like how things kind of worked out with these hieroglyphs, because it just doesn't make a lot of sense that it would come out that way, which sounds very Roman to me. Between 309 and 312 CE, the obelisk was moved to the Circus of Maxensis by Emperor Maxensis in the memory of his son Romulus. This was along the Appian Road, somewhere south of Rome. But then, in the 6th century, the obelisk was toppled and broken into a few pieces. It wasn't until the 1630s, yes, I said the 1630s, over 1,000 years later, did the British Earl of Arundel attempt to transport all of the pieces of this obelisk back to London, but the Italians did not permit this. Finally, in the 17th century, Pope Innocent X decided to re-erect it at the Piazza Navona, along with this statue that is here at the bottom. This is made by the architect Giovanni Lorenzo Barini, and the sculpture is actually called the Four Rivers, and this depicts the personifications of the Danube River, the Ganges River, the Nile, and the Rio de la Plata, which is supposed to represent the Americas. Finally, I also had to point out that there is a pigeon/dove on top of this obelisk and not a cross, which honestly is kind of unique for this one.